Hello and welcome to the Paralegal Voice, recorded on location live before, I don't have a studio audience. Everybody's kind of gone into another session, so it's just me and my guest today, and we're reporting from the 2019 NALA Conference and Expo in Scottsdale, Arizona. Of course, today's show is being sponsored by our wonderful organization, NALA, courtfiling.net, Legal Inc., and ServeNow, and truly we thank our generous support from our sponsors. They do fantastic work for us, and in return, we do a lot of things for them as well. And so thank you, sponsors. So my guest right now joining me, I have Kelly LaGrave, ACP. She is past president of NALA. Kelly, what year were you? I can't keep everybody straight.
I have a hard time with it. It was 2014 through 2016.
Okay. I knew it was recent.
Recent,
but
not really. 3 years ago.
I know. I mean,
yeah.
Anyway,
time flies,
right? So thank you, Kelly, so much for joining us today. And Kelly is an amazing presenter. She is going to be doing multiple sessions. Sorry about the wind, guys. Somebody has opened the door, and it's warm.
There it goes. It's closing, so you'll be good.
It's a little warm here in Phoenix. I think we're at It's hot. I'm being told that it's hot. No, it's not hot. I'm a desert dweller now. I call myself a desert rat, and so I've gotten used to the heat. It's still hot though. I don't care. It's
hot. I know it's a dry heat, right? Yeah, it's hot.
But Kelly is, like I said, she's an amazing presenter. I've actually attended couple of her sessions before.
Well, thank you.
She is going to be doing, over the course of the next couple of days, multiple sessions about the CP, the Certified Paralegal Exam review.
Correct.
She's hitting a couple of topics, one of which is my absolute favorite, and it's ethics. I love ethics.
I was afraid you were going to say contracts.
Kelly, no, contracts is not my favorite, so any contracts paralegals listening, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But thank you, Kelly, for coming on and being a guest on today's show. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for asking.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into what I call the meat and potato questions, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? Where do you work? What do you do?
I'm a senior paralegal at a in-house health system organization. It's a group of hospitals.
Okay.
I went in-house 3 years ago after being with a large law firm in Lansing, Michigan for 23 years. I went in-house with a client. I don't think the firm was real excited about that, but it was a wonderful opportunity for me to expand what I was doing and not bill anymore.
So Kelly and I both transitioned from the large litigation law firm world about the same time, 3 years ago, and both went in-house. Of course, I'm in a different part of the country. We don't work at the same place, but I want to high-five you because it's like so refreshing when you say no more billable hour.
Oh, best thing ever. I was good at it, but and it was really, it took some time to get used to the fact that you wouldn't go into a meeting and then go, okay, how long was I in that meeting? Or how long did I talk to that person?
Okay.
I got to write it down.
I have to ask you this. Before we get into this, I got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
So when you transitioned into in-house and your very first meeting you went to, did you or did you not, when you're writing and taking notes, write on your piece of paper what time you started the meeting?
I sure did. And it took me about a year before I quit doing that.
Okay, so it took me about 8 months before I did the same thing. So I just wanted to see if I was an anomaly. But
Nope.
It sounds like...
No, and once you quit watching the clock, I mean, my husband used to laugh at me because we would be out on the weekends, and I always knew exactly what time it was, even if I wasn't looking at a clock. He goes, what time is it? And I would tell him, he goes, how do you know that? And I said, it's because you live every 6 minutes of every workday.
Right, exactly
and
right.
I don't do that now.
Oh, thank you. It's refreshing. We can have another session, another show about transitioning. But today we're going to talk about the CP exam review and a little bit about what you're doing here at the NALA conference with that. So let's jump right into it. So when did you obtain your certification?
Boy, I had to think about that. 1994.
Okay, so for those that may not be familiar with NALA certification, the exam itself, it's changed since when you first took it to what it is
Drastically,
today.
It has changed. I took it, it was 7 sections. 3 essays, and you took it over a 2-day time period, and the 2-day time period was set in stone. You were lucky if it was in your location, so a lot of people had to travel, spend the night somewhere, and it was offered 4 times a year on that one Friday and Saturday. So it wasn't really receptive to people's schedules.
I remember when my mom, my late mother, was a paralegal before she went on and went to law school later in life. And she took the certification exam back in 86.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember her studying for that and referring to it as a mini bar exam.
Yeah, that's a lot of people refer to. When I took the reason I decided to take it is at the time we had moved across country multiple times, and I have a degree from Michigan State. Go Green. And but I don't have a paralegal degree. At the time I went to school, there really weren't a lot of paralegal schools out there, and I had contemplated law school. And then when I found out about paralegals, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. So for me, the CP exam is portable and it's nationally recognized. So it made more sense for me to do the certification than to go back and get a paralegal degree. So that's why I took it. The year I decided to start studying was the year the first review book came out that Virginia Korselman wrote. And before that time, there really wasn't a lot of study material out there. There was a group in Florida that had a course that you could take, I think. Not online. There wasn't such a thing. So that's kind of what started it, was when the book came out. I thought, okay, this is the time I can, I'll sit for this exam. And I talked 2 other friends into doing it with me.
So, and that's, I will say, for those that are listening, whether you be a paralegal that's been doing it for many years or newly minted coming out of a program, it's always best to find your study buddies when you study for a certification exam. I'm studying right now for the CP exam, and I've got a study buddy that she and I are
highly recommend finding somebody to study with, because it keeps you focused and it keeps you moving along, and it's so easy when you're doing it by yourself and you're not accountable to anybody else just to say, oh, I'll do it later. Right. I'll finish it another time. Oh, this came up and life happens, and you just have to try to make it a priority. But
right, exactly right.
It's definitely a worthwhile priority.
It is definitely, I agree. So how did you get involved in teaching the CP review, some of the CP review topics at a conference? When I went in one of your sessions, that was 2 years ago in Orlando, and I went specifically for the judgment analytical, because that was the session that I will tell, and I'll be blatantly honest to the listeners and to you, Kelly, that stresses me out, is the research writing portion of it. And it's just, I don't know why. I need to get out of my head, but... Well,
and that is the section that most people, if they're going to fail a section of the exam, that's the one that that has the highest fail rate. And I hate to use the word fail. So I started, and I was trying to remember the date of this. I cannot remember. NALIS used to have a program called Membership Exchange. Okay. And they would invite members to submit proposals to speak at conference. It was kind of like an honor to be chosen. And they've changed formats, so they don't do that anymore. But I submitted a proposal to do a membership exchange on business and corporate. And I got chosen. I don't even know if I was on the board yet. This is quite a while ago. So I did a business course and came in and did my presentation. Well, the board was just working on getting the first webinar up. This was a new thing. No one had heard of it. And they said, you've got this business program. Will you do it as a webinar? I said, sure. So I did the very first NALA Live webinar and liked it. I was surprised I liked it. Over the years, I've done several others. I've done some on UCC, and I've done the business one multiple times. And once I was done as president, they asked me, they said, well, would you be willing to do some of the CP review courses at conference? And I jumped on the chance because I liked speaking. I'm really passionate about the exam, and I'm passionate about education.
And it shows. It definitely shows.
Oh, well, thank you. We do, you try.
Right. But you do a phenomenal job.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Thank you so much for doing that. Okay. I'm not going to get into the meat and potatoes about the certification, the NALA certification. For those that want to maybe do more research, NALA.org has all the information about the exam. So what we're going to talk about is briefly about the exam. the certification, the Certified Paralegal Exam, if someone was considering whether or not to actually take the CP exam, what would you say to them? What's the benefit of taking the exam?
Well, as I mentioned, for me, initially the reason I took it was because I just never knew where we were going to end up next. At the time I took it, I had lived in Texas, we had lived in Arizona, I moved back to Michigan, all within about a 6-year time frame, and I wasn't sure where we were going to go next with my husband's job. So I thought I needed that extra marketing piece for myself, just that extra thing on your resume that people will look at. And we had initially talked about moving to Florida. And in Florida, in order to get a decent paralegal job, you almost have to be certified. California, some of the other states, it's more recognized than in other jurisdictions. But certification to me was important enough to get. So I can tell you when I took the exam and passed, I got a salary increase with my employer, and we do find surveys show that certified paralegals tend to make more because they bumped my billing rate where I was working because I was now certified. And I think it brought a lot of professional respect to what we were doing, especially once the attorneys I worked with found out how the exam was, what was on the exam and what it took to pass the exam. And just the huge sense of accomplishment, professional accomplishments, like, I can do this. I did not take it right out of college. I graduated from college a long time ago. I had probably been out about 15 years I'd been out of college. So it was stressful to say the least. But like I said, misery loved company, and I got 2 of my friends to take it with me. And I will say we kept each other on task. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot more than I think I would have if I hadn't taken the exam. It also gave me a lot more self-confidence to go out and try new areas of the law because I was studying things that I hadn't really been working in. So I think there's just a wealth of reasons to sit for the certification exam.
One of the things that you hit on was, marketing yourself and being able to market yourself, having those initials after your name on a resume. One of the things that I always teach paralegal students is that while certification is voluntary, it's not mandatory to have a certification to work as a paralegal. However, as a paralegal manager, I have done countless of interviews of paralegals. And if I'm looking at equal resumes, 2 individuals, and they are equal in all aspects, and I interview them and see that they are neck and neck, and I'm trying to decide that CP, that additional extra initials after the name, may be the way for me to count, the deciding factor
right.
to hire them. And that's what I always tell students, that do it for yourself. Do it for what you said just a second ago, the self-gratification of knowing that, I did above and beyond of what is required of me to be a minimum paralegal in the industry. So if I go and take this certification exam, I know that with like the NALA certification exam, I'm competent, I'm qualified, I know respective major areas of law, I'm ethical, and I tell students and beat them in their heads, ethics.
Oh, and I'm glad to hear it.
And that's a huge part of, having that certification. You can take pride in that I know what the ethical rules are required, and not only me, but my employer, the attorney for whom I work for.
Right. And sometimes it's good to know those so you can remind them.
Correct. Many a time have I gone, the ethical rules say X, and to me we're kind of skating close to, should we be, so yeah, because I know the rules. And even to this day, working in-house, there have been situations where my attorney has come to me and gone, isn't that an ethical rule? Hasn't, plaintiff's counsel violated an ethical rule? And I go, you know what? This is what the Nevada rules say. And yeah, it's up to interpretation, but I would say absolutely. I can't give legal advice, so I'm not an attorney, but my attorney's coming to me because he knows that having a certification demonstrates that I know the ethical rules, because I have to know them in order to pass certification exam.
That's absolutely correct.
So about the exam itself and about
Okay.
studying. We've talked about finding your study buddy.
Yep,
You
that
know,
would be one of my biggest tips for you.
exactly right. So studying. What are your tips and tricks? You said that would be one of your tips.
That would be one of my tips. Join NALA has a Facebook CP study group. Anybody can
fantastic,
join.
by the way, people.
Right. Anybody can join it. I'm amazed at the great questions and the communications people are having. I say have a study partner. You may be somewhere where you can't physically have somebody personally with you, to study, but you could find somebody in this electronic day and age where you could work, online with each other. I suggest that. NALA now has the review manual that just came out. We've been talking about that here at conference. Highly recommend the book. They spent a good deal of time getting qualified people to write the chapters within the book. I think it's an excellent book. I would get the review manual. I think it's a good place to start. NALA has a mock exam book. I know there's a lot of people get concerned about taking tests and how it works. So the mock exam book's good. NALA also has a bank of questions that you can do online, and it's on the same platform as the exam. So when when you're studying, if you're trying to figure out, am I studying the right things? Do I understand what I'm doing? You can go online and use NALA's coursework, the study program that they have with the questions. I'm trying to think of what the name is. I apologize.
Not mock, but
not mock. It's practice exam questions.
Yes.
But, NAL's got some great stuff. Conference here. But there's a lot of other things out there that you can look at, too. I was online the other day looking at Quizlet, I think
Quizlet,
it is.
yes.
Quizlet. Also, there's a lot of online programs for grammar and punctuation, the English part, and you are graded on that on the skills part of the exam. So those are great sources to go to. YouTube. I'm amazed at how much stuff's on YouTube.
Right.
So it's just kind of amazing how much stuff is out there now, especially when I look at what we had when I sat for the exam to what people have now when they're sitting for the exam. But like I said, use the Facebook group on NALA's website, NALA's Facebook website, because I think it really connects people and gives people a platform to talk to each other, especially for those that don't have anybody else they're studying with.
Right, and I will say, piggybacking on that very issue about if you don't have a study buddy, if you're living out in the middle of Montana and you don't have a local affiliate, NALA affiliate, you don't have, other resources, you got your degree from another state and you're out there by yourself, reach out to the Facebook group. Ask to maybe do a Zoom or a Google Hangout and get someone else to be your study buddy that may live in another state that you can virtually study together. I mean, you don't have to be alone. That's what I want the listeners to understand.
I do. There's a lot of apps. The other one that I suggest people use is a lot of the law schools for studying for the bar. There's a lot of apps out there. It's like trivia questions that you can answer, like when you're sitting somewhere and waiting, I don't know, if your kids get done with their soccer games or something. You go on these apps, and I had a friend who was studying for the exam, and she found a law school app and used it a lot, and it got to be fun because it was kind of like a trivial thing. We'd see how many questions she could get right and I could get right, and how were we doing. Reach out to, you mentioned affiliates, NALA affiliates. A lot of them have review courses. So that's a good place to reach out to. You've got one
I'm holding up my iPhone to Kelly, and I've got 3 different apps of exactly what she's talking at. One of which, of course, is the Legal Talk Network, but that's not an app to study with, but it's good information. But another one is a paralegal exam review. It's just a general app on knowledge that a paralegal needs to know in the respective areas. And another one that's my favorite is more of a gamification app, and it's called Law Dojo, Law Dojo, DOJO. And it covers everything from know your rights, criminal law, evidence law, constitutional, contracts, torts, all the major areas. But you play in this little character, this little avatar, looks like a ninja. And you have to, if you answer a question wrong, your ninja dies. And I love it because it makes it fun to study.
And gamification is the new buzzword, and
Right.
it's the way to learn. And they're finding that if you can make it a game, people remember.
Right, exactly right.
Their memory works better. So I think those are great ways. When I studied, and this is very old school, I had index cards. And so I know some people still use them. I wrote, well, when I took the exam, there was a whole section on legal terminology.
Right.
Latin. Mm-hmm. So I had Latin words and their definitions on cards. And when I would be waiting someplace at the doctor's office or something, I'd pull my cards out and work through them. We had a communication section, and you had definitions for things. So I used index cards. Now, I don't know if anybody even knows this day and age what an index card is, but, those are, those kind of, whatever works for you. And you don't have to study 2 hours at a time. Sometimes it's just you got 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. And
always I tell a student, when you're, approach a problem or studying for an exam, and it seems gargantuan in size, and it's like, how am I going to study this? There's an old Indian proverb that says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it's true. If you pick it off in these sections from the certification exam, just study little bits at a time. You don't have to sit down and try to cram in 2 hours everything in your head. Review snippets, like you said. I tell students, I use technology, but I also I'm old school. I'm the bridging the gap here on the different technology and how you study. But index cards, doing them, you're getting ready for in the morning or brushing your teeth at night. Stand a stack of the index cards in front of your mirror and just go through the cards while you're brushing your teeth and fixing your hair. And you just find those times.
Get off your phone, right?
Get off your phone.
And we talked about earlier today with our
Right.
keynote speaker, get off that phone, because what do you say the average American spends 8 hours a day on their cell phone?
On your cell phone.
That's kind of scary.
It is scary. And it can be the death of you.
But it is that library that's in your hand, right?
Right. Exactly right. So, okay. So talk a little bit about ticks. Wow. Tips and tricks and ticks. Well, we don't live out in Michigan where you have ticks, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, some parts do.
So we talked a little bit about the resources to offer them test takers to study. This is going to be my last question. So the resort that we're staying at, and this is my fun question.
Oh, okay.
So
weren't these all fun questions?
Well, yes, it's the exam. It's studying for the test.
Come on.
I mean, I now have a live studio audience here, and fun, right? Certification exam is fun. Yeah. See, she has her certification, her CP through NALA. Okay, so fun question.
Okay.
I'm sure you love the resort. I have fallen in love with the resort. I've only been here a day and a half.
Fortunately, I haven't been out and about into the resort yet, but I'm hoping that we can do that later this weekend.
Okay, good. So, but I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
So you haven't done it yet, but.
Yeah, I've read a bunch about it. So,
okay.
Yeah,
so, got to choose.
Okay.
You can't pick both. You got to pick one of them,
Sure.
and tell me why you're going to pick one of them.
Okay.
Swimming pool.
Okay.
Or lazy river.
Oh,
and
lazy
why?
river.
Why?
Just get to lay on an inner tube and go down the river and just relax. Swimming takes energy. And once I'm done with conference and done speaking, I just want to relax and just lay on that inner tube and go down the lazy river.
Are you going to be able to stay an extra day? Or
we are here till Wednesday because we have family in the area. So we're at the resort till Sunday. So I'm kind of hoping on Sunday I can get a little bit time in before we leave.
Well, I will tell you, I came a little early yesterday, enough that a couple of hours before the reception last night that I did get to enjoy the lazy river. I will tell you, it is amazing.
So for you, is it the swim or the lazy river?
Lazy river. Put me in an inner tube and just let me float. It's just so relaxing. I don't know what it is about being in the water. I just love water, period. But being in the lazy river, I just
there's no water down here. See, that's where you got to go where I live. If you like water, you go where I live.
Well, I will tell you, I'm more of a ocean type of person when it comes to water. I like the large body of ocean.
That would be the Great Lakes.
Really? You know, I have not been to the Great Lakes. I need
Great
to come
Lakes
up.
are salt-free, shark-free, and there's nothing there that's going to hurt you.
Really now? Do you guarantee that, Kelly? Okay. I'll have to make a trip up there. Kelly, thank you so much
you're very
for
welcome.
taking the time to talk about NALA's CP exam and the review. And I know that the individuals that are going to be setting in your sessions, and you're going to be doing contracts, corporate, and then ethics, and one more, right?
The legal writing.
The legal writing, which for those that have not, and I will do this little plug for NALA as well.
Sure.
The sessions are recorded.
Yes,
so,
they are.
You can access the CP exam courses that our wonderful Kelly LaGrave is going to be doing.
It's not just me.
There are other
recorded,
sessions.
And they're you can purchase them from NALA, and it also includes the PowerPoints. So it's not just you can get not just the audio, but also the written.
The actual handout material that comes out,
too,
which is fantastic. Yeah. It's definitely another resource
for those that can't come to conference.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to say to those that are listening that didn't come to conference this year for whatever reason, you don't want to miss next year. Definitely want to come next year, right?
Right, yep. Atlantic City will be interesting.
It will be. So I'm in Vegas. Now I'm the desert rat. So I live in Vegas. I've been there now 4 years. So I've never been to Atlantic City. So I'm intrigued to see how that side handles the casino resort environment.
I was there in March for 2 days at the resort. We went out, and it's definitely different than Vegas.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Not a bad different. It's just different.
And I will be attending next year with a CP behind my name.
That's right.
I'm claiming it right now.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. All right,
Kelly, thanks so much for being our
you.
guest. So if any of the listeners wanted to get in touch with you, is there a social media that they can follow you on, or email, or how would they contact
LinkedIn.
you? Okay. Just find you at
Find
Kelly.
me it's Kelly, just Kelly LaGrave. I think I'm the only one on LinkedIn.
LaGrave.
AVE. Yep.
Yep. Definitely. Okay, great.
Right.
So thank you, Kelly. And that's all the time we have for this episode of The Paralegal Voice, brought to you by, of course, our generous support of NALA, courtfiling.net, Legal Inc., and ServeNow. And thanks again to our sponsors so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you've heard, definitely please rate, review Legal Talk Network at the Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting application. So I'm Carl Morrison, host of The Paralegal Voice. And definitely, if you have any questions, please send them to me at devotedtolaw@gmail.com. That's DEVOTED, the number 2, LAW@gmail.com. So definitely, until next time, thank you for listening.
The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, or subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.